Congressional candidate and state delegate Aruna Miller. Ricky Carioti, The Washington Post, as a woman and an immigrant, state Del. Aruna Miller personifies the Democratic candidates dominating the 2018 midterm elections as she seeks to succeed Rep. John Delaney in Maryland and help her party retain the seat. But her chief rival in the race, businessman David Trone, is spending more than $10 million of his own money on his campaign, an amount that threatens to overwhelm any advantage Miller hoped to glean from endorsements from Emily's List and a trove of state lawmakers. Miller and Trone are among 8 Democrats running in Tuesday's primary in the state's most competitive House contests, anchored in a gerrymandered swath that stretches from Washington suburbs to western Maryland. The race is an opportunity for Democrats to elect a woman to Maryland's all-male congressional delegation. But the winner is almost certain to face another woman, Republican Amy Hoeber, in a general election that is likely to generate national interest as both parties seek to control the House. The 6th district seat was held for years by a Republican, until Democratic leaders redrew the boundaries in 2012. Now it leans Democratic, though Republican Dan Bongino nearly ousted Delaney in 2014. "This is one of the very few that's a toss-up," said State Senator Cheryl Kagan, D. Montgomery, who is not endorsing in the race. The outcome could be the deciding factor to whether there's checks and balances to President Trump's policies. Congressional candidate David Trone, Ricky Carioti, The Washington Post, Miller, 53, a 2-term delegate, hopes that voters tire of Trone's ubiquitous television ads and dismiss him as a dilettante trying to buy his way into national politics. Only 2 years ago, Trone spent $13 million on his losing campaign for the adjoining 8th district seat won by Rep. Jamie Raskin, D. "This is an individual who is shopping around for a seat," Miller said. "He has no base." Trone, the owner of Total Wine. "We've had a real opportunity to get out and talk and listen," he said. Trone has also outspent his rivals more than 10-1, an enormous advantage as he has sought support in the district's 4 rural counties. Congressional candidate Roger Manno, a Maryland state senator. Ricky Carioti, The Washington Post, "The spending is sort of at incomprehensible levels," said Keith Haller, a pollster unaffiliated with any candidate in the race. Trone has checked every Democratic box, not with a pencil but with a giant magic marker. Haller predicted that Republicans would pillory Trone's spending if he wins the nomination, particularly in a district with a population of economically struggling rural voters. "It's red meat for the Republicans," Haller said. "The fact that he can do it will be the albatross in November." Trone cast himself as the race's underdog and outsider, even as he hosted a fundraiser for President Obama at his Potomac home and contributed hundreds of thousands of dollars to party organizations and Democratic and Republican candidates nationwide. He says that Miller and another candidate, State Senator Roger Manno, Montgomery, have the edge in the race because they are professional politicians who have won previous elections. Invoking Delaney and former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg, both tycoons turned politicians, Trone described himself as a disruptor who needed to spend money to introduce himself to the electorate. "Voters thank me for putting my own funds in," Trone said, dismissing criticism of his self-funding as coming from political insiders. Democrats dominate Maryland's House delegation by a 7-1 margin, a dynamic that would largely endure even if Republicans capture the seat in November. On the Eastern Shore, the delegation's lone Republican seat, 6 Democrats are seeking the nomination to challenge 4-term incumbent Rep. and Harris. The race has drawn the interest of district-based activists who are targeting Harris because of his opposition to legalizing marijuana. None of the state's Democratic House incumbents face serious challenges Tuesday are from Republicans in the fall. The Democrats running in the 6th district, including pediatrician Nadia Hashimi, retired intelligence officer Andrew Duck, retired economist George English, businessman Chris Graves and aerospace executive Christopher Hersey, largely agree on the issues. But Trone's spending has made the race another test of whether a self-financed candidate can spawn a political career. In addition, Miller's gender and ethnicity, she's an Indian American, raises the question of whether Democratic voters will accept a non-traditional candidate. Trone represents what politicians used to look like, and Miller represents what they're going to look like, said Todd Eberly, a St. Mary's College political science professor. Delaney, who is leaving Congress to run for president, has declined to endorse in the race, describing Miller, Trone and Mano as very strong. Delaney said Trone is more likely to have the resources to go dollar for dollar with a well-funded Republican, though he acknowledged that out-of-state money could flow to any Democratic nominee. Like Trone, Delaney dipped into his personal fortune to launch his political career. The congressman defended Trone's spending, saying he has been transparent, and drew a contrast between the businessman's approach and the dark money that pervades national politics. That should be the real thing people should be concerned about, Delaney said. In interviews, voters expressed a range of views about the importance of political experience and Trone's spending. It's like any job, you don't take a guy fresh out of college and put him in the fire pit, said Herb Edelstein, 73, a math teacher who attended a candidates forum in Potomac. Trone talks a good game, how he gives to this cause and that cause. Great. He should continue to do that. Laverne Markovitz, a retiree who also attended the forum, said it struck her as unfair that Trone's rivals did not have the money to compete with him on television. I'd like to see more women in power, Markowitz said. But her husband, Jack, said Trone's business success made him worthy of serious consideration. His money doesn't bother me, he said. 2 years ago, Raskin defeated Trone despite being outspent by an 8-to-1 margin. But Raskin had spent nearly a decade in state politics, was well known to voters and had assembled a superior political organization. Mano, the Senate Majority Whip in Annapolis, has endorsements from numerous unions and progressive groups. But he has raised only $331,000, including a $72,000 loan from himself, less than a quarter of Miller's total and 30 times less than what Trone has given his campaign. Trone had spent $9.5 million on the race as of the latest filing deadline. Miller had spent $801,000. We're up against a big self-funder and out-of-state donors in an attempt to buy a congressional seat, Mano said. I don't think it should be allowed to happen in America. Miller has had her own frustrations, including not being endorsed by anyone in Maryland's congressional delegation. Trone was endorsed by Rep. Dutch Ruppersberger and Rep. Anthony Brown, to whom he and his family and businesses gave nearly $200,000 during the 2014 gubernatorial race. In early April, Miller was targeted by Maryland's Republican Party, which sent out mailers attacking her as weak on crime. Paul Ellington, a political consultant advising Hober, said he prefers that she be the only woman in the race in November. Trone, he said, would be an easier target than Miller. Trone is out of touch, Ellington said. I don't think he knows the district or the voters, and he has decided to spend us into oblivion. That will be fodder for us. Told of the consultant's remarks, Trone said, we are going to do fantastic. Amy Hober doesn't want to run against David Trone. She knows her goose is cooked.